Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we will do class 6 figures of speech, and we talked a lot about the figures of speech during talking about the poems in the previous sessions, but today, inshallah, we will focus on the theoretical understanding of them. The first thing that we will do is that we will define the figures of speech. So what do you mean by a figure of speech? It is a figurative language in form of a single word or phrase. So it could be a word or a phrase used in a non-literal sense for rhetorical effect. Rhetorical effect means المعنى البلاغي. إذن the word or the phrase that we use, we don't mean their exact meaning, but we have another far meaning for them. Okay, look, for example, part of the figure of speech is something called imagery. Okay, imagery اللي هي الصورة رسم صورة عن أي موضوع أنا بتكلم عنه. Imagery can be defined as a writer or speaker's use of words or figures of speech to create a vivid mental picture or physical sensation. So, for example, if you are standing on the top of a mountain, you look to the nature in front of you and you start describing the colors, for example, of the forest, the color of the sun, the sky, the trees, the mountains, the rocks, okay? And then this is to appeal to the sight. And then you start describing the smell of the air, okay? So here you are appealing for smelling. Then you talk about the sounds that come to your ears from the mountains, the birds, the wind, and so on. So here you are appealing to the hearing. If you talk about for example, how when you touch the rocks or the soil, how it feels. So here you are appealing for the touch. So the idea is that you will use words and adjectives in your description that will enable the reader to draw a picture, a mental picture inside his brain. Okay, so if you look here at these two examples, you would find there is a white bird in the sky. Yes, we have here a little description with white bird, but this is not the full picture. But if you say the delicate white bird flew gracefully through the blue sky, all these adjectives that we used here, in addition to white bird, it added to the mental image that we actually drew when we read this sentence. Okay, so this is the idea of the imagery. You use words and adjectives in order to enable the reader draw a mental picture of the thing that you are describing. Now let's come to the second type of figures of speech, which is simile, التشبيه. And here we are talking about direct or explicit simile, التشبيه الصريح. Okay, now with the simile, you choose two things and you compare between them. These things are different from each other, and you compare between them using the words such as like, as, similar to, than, and resembles. Okay, for example, oh, my love is like a red rose. So here you compared your love to the red rose, and to compare between them, you actually used the word like. Okay, now we have another type similar to the simile, but it is a kind of implied simile. It's not like explicit, but implicit, يعني متضمن, which is the metaphor. Here the metaphor is a more elaborate kind of comparison. In the metaphor, you compare between two things without using explicit words. For example, my wrath did grow, and I watered it in fears. So here there is a metaphor. What is the metaphor? My wrath did grow. Now, what grow usually? What grows? The trees. The trees are the things that grow, or here he's talking about the trees, okay? The trees are the things that grow. But we use this verb, which is used for trees, with wrath. What do you mean by wrath? Anger. غضبي نما، أو يعني نما خليها نما لأنه كبرة ممكن تيجي كبرة كإنسان. غضبي كبرة. Okay, and I watered it in fears. ورويته بمخاوفي. Okay, so here, yes, definitely after we read watered, definitely he compared between wrath and a tree that grows. And how do trees grow? By adding water for them or watering them. So here, the funny thing is that he considered fears as water, okay, for his anger. Now, you should notice that when we say, my love is like a red rose, this is a simile. But if you say, my love is a rose or a red rose, this is a metaphor. The same thing here. My wrath grew, okay? So this is a metaphor. I watered it in fears. This is a metaphor. Look at the next sentence. They proved lions in battle. يعني هم كانوا أسودا في المعركة. So they are the soldiers and they are shown as or represented as lions. So this is not only simile but implied simile. So this is metaphor. إذا عندما تغيب أدوات التشبيه اللي هي ك، اوكي، احنا عندنا باللغة العربية ك، ففي هذه الحالة بيصبح metaphor. Okay, so the poet or the writer here presented the soldiers as lions because they were strong and courageous and for example fought furiously or fiercely. Okay, now let's come to personification. So we talked about imagery, we talked about simile, we talked about metaphor. Now personification, it is a special kind of metaphor wherein abstract ideas or inanimate objects are spoken of as though they were persons. Do you remember several times I told you that with personification you give human traits or characteristics to something that is not a human, okay, such as animals or objects or non-living things. Let's look at this one. The sun rose from his bed. Okay, now in literature actually they refer to the sun as a he and to the moon as a she. This is something from the previous ages. Okay, so the sun rose from his bed. So here he presented the sun as a human being who rises from bed, sleeping and rises. Okay, the moon veiled her face. Okay, the moon, as if it's a woman with hair and is covering her face. Okay, to the moon, O moon. So here he is speaking or addressing the moon as if the moon is a human being, a woman. Okay, so the sun we use he or his, while moon we use she or her. طبعا in our ordinary life, no, we refer to the sun as a she and to the moon as a he. Okay, now let's look at these examples of personification. The car danced across the icy road. Does the car dance? No, dancing is for human beings, so this is personification. The angry clouds marched across the sky. Can the clouds be angry? No. Human beings can be angry. So this is personification. The stars in the clear night sky winked at me. Okay, so where's the personification here? Yes, the stars winked. So who winks? Just the human beings. اللي يغمز. Okay, so here this is a personification, personifying the stars as if they were someone who is winking at us while they are actually shining in the sky. Okay, look at the sentence number 4 and tell me where the personification is. The tulips, nodded their heads in the breeze. Tulips is a type of flowers, nodded their heads in that breeze. So where is the personification? Yes, the tulips, the flowers, nodded their heads as if they are human beings, and they nod or yani bring down. They bring their heads down in front of the air. So these are simple examples of personification. Okay, now let's come to another figure of speech which we have talked about also, which is called alliteration. Okay, I don't want to go through the other classifications for it, but we will focus on the general meaning of it. It is a term to describe a literary devices in which a series of words begin with the same consonant sound. Okay, so when in the line of the poem you have the words, a number of words starting with the same consonant sound, we call this alliteration. We call this alliteration. Alliteration is also called head rhyme or initial rhyme. كيف القافية اللي في نهاية السطر أوكي أو البيت الشعري. الآن لما بيجي هذه التجانس في الصوت للكلمات في بداية الكلمات بنسميها head rhyme أو initial rhyme. A classic example is alliteration. We will have alliteration examples, one of those alliteration examples is she sells seashells by the seashore. Actually, this is called tongue twister in English, by the way. But it depends on the idea of alliteration. It depends on the idea of alliteration. Okay. Now let's come to another type, which is called hyperbole. Okay. Okay, so as I said, we will come to hyperbole. It is an exaggeration to produce a more striking effect than a plain statement. Hyperbole here is مبالغة. Okay, اللي هي عملية المبالغة. So usually you exaggerate in your speaking to give a stronger effect of what you are saying. So for example, when we say rivers of blood, this is an exaggeration. This is hyperbole. Okay, and with this hyperbole you want to show that many people got injured and killed in the battle. Okay, so you say rivers of blood. Definitely this is hyperbole. Okay, now let's come to symbolism. What do you mean by symbolism? Symbolism, you know, the symbols. Usually we use symbols. For example, the sun is the symbol of happiness. Rain is the symbol of what? Symbol of what? Symbol of good things coming to us. Yeah, because rain is connected with the rebirth of the earth and the whole world. What else? Darkness is a symbol of, for example, getting lost, or the symbol of what? Of failure. What else? So we have actually different symbols in our life. Look at, for example, the traffic lights. The traffic lights. For example, red is a symbol of danger. Green is a symbol of safety. So it's safe for you to move. There are many signs actually showing us we have drawings, but they actually represent symbols for something else. Okay, so let's look at the literary definition of symbolism. So symbolism is a literary device that uses symbols, words, people, marks, locations, or abstract ideas to represent something beyond the literal meaning. So for example, the flag for any country, there is a flag. This is a symbol of its national unity. And within that symbol, we have the different colors, and each color represents something. For example, in the Palestinian flag, we have the black color. What does it represent? It represents the wars and the bad times in our history. The red, it represents the blood of the martyrs and our struggle against occupation. Okay, the green, it represents our land, the Palestinian land, and white, it's our hope that one day we will get back our land. Okay, so what is symbolism in literature? Examples. There are many examples in literature, and sometimes in every line you may have a word that stands for something else. Look, for example, at the red rose. The red rose, or the red color actually, usually stand for love or romance. Black is a symbol that represents evil or death. But be careful, black was evil and death in the past ages and era in literature. But in the modern era, it has another meaning. It could be white, the evil one, or white is representative not of innocence but of ambiguity, because you know white consists of 7 colors, right? So it may not be an innocent color. Okay, the ladder, for example, the ladder may stand as a symbol for a connection between heaven and earth, and this is something that you can use in religious poems. A broken mirror, the broken mirror may symbolize separation. Okay. Last time we talked about Macbeth and Dr. Faustus, so I thought that why not to use some of the symbols mentioned in Macbeth and Dr. Faustus. So let's look at examples from them. In Macbeth, for example, the spot of blood on Macbeth's wife's dress represented or was a symbol of her sense of guilt. اوكي في كانت نقطة دم على فستانها، وكانت هي متخيلة انه في نقطة دم، وكانت طول الوقت تحاول تغسلها ولدرجة انها اصيبت بالجنون بسببها. So this spot of blood was a symbol of her sense of guilt. Okay. Also in Dr. Faustus, do you remember when we talked about the good angel and the evil angel? So the good angel was the symbol of the religion. The symbol of the inner conscience of Dr. Faustus. We said that the good angel could represent the religion and its teachings, or could be the inner conscience, الضمير الداخلي. Okay, while the evil angel represented his lust for knowledge and power. So the evil angel, not necessarily to be something from religion, but it could be the weakness inside us, or it could be the flaw inside us. Of course, for Dr. Faustus here, it was his lust for knowledge and power. So both represented the divided, the good angel and the evil angel were symbols of the divided nature of human beings. Okay, so that's in Macbeth and Dr. Faustus. Of course, there were many other symbols that you can find when you read them. Now let's come to, I think, the last figure of speech or literary device that we will use today, which is irony. Irony is a literary device. Okay, now let's come to the last figure of speech or literary device that we will talk about today, which is irony. Irony is a literary device, yes, we said that, in which contradictory statements or situations reveal a reality that is different from what appears to be true. Now, you should know that irony is not necessarily always humorous or making us laugh. Sometimes it's just the contradiction between what we expect, what we say, and what appears to be the real thing. Okay, now there are 3 types of irony: verbal irony, situational irony, and dramatic irony. So let's examine each one of them. Now, the verbal irony, this is the normal one, occurs when a speaker's intention is the opposite of what he or she is saying. So, for example, your brother got bad mark on the exam, then you say, oh, you are so clever, ما أذكاك. But actually, this is verbal irony. You didn't mean that he is clever. You meant the opposite of what you said. For example, a character stepping out into a hurricane, okay, and saying, what nice weather we are having. تخيل إعصار وأقف وأحكي يا لهذا الطقس الرائع. Of course, here the person who's speaking, or you, if you are speaking, you don't mean that it is really wonderful, but you mean the opposite. Okay, now let's come to the situational irony, which is more complicated actually. It occurs when the actual result of a situation is totally different from what you would expect the result to be. For example, a family spends a lot of time and money planning an elaborate surprise birthday party for their mother to show her how much they care. But then, when it is the day and she comes back from, for example, from work, they discovered that they were mistaken and her birthday is next month, for example. So how would the mother feel? She would feel horrible, because it means that you don't care about her and you didn't know the time of her birthday. So you wanted to make her happy, but actually that situation made her feel sad more. Okay, so this is the situational irony. There is another situational irony in The Gift of the Magi. This is a story. Yeah, it's about the Magi, but anyway, it's a story at the end of the day. We don't have anything to do with religion now. So in this short story by O. Henry, a wife sells her hair to buy her husband a watch chain. تشتري له باعت شعرها عشان تشتري سلسلة للساعة بتبعته. Okay, and what happened next? Okay, and her husband sells his watch to buy her combs for her hair. تخيلوا زوجها باع ساعته حتى يشتري إلها مشاط لشعرها. هي باعت شعرها وهو باع الساعة. Okay, so the situation is that each one of them did something, sacrificed something to make the other one happy, but both have made sacrifices in order to buy gifts for one another, but in the end the gifts are useless. سلسلة الساعة ومشاط الشعر على الفاضي. The real gift is how much, طبعا of course there is a gift here, but the real gift is how much they are willing to give up to show their love for one another. Okay, so this is the situational irony. The situation turns to be the opposite of what we wanted. Now the last one is dramatic irony. Dramatic irony occurs when the audience, you as a reader or as an audience, okay, someone who watches a play, for example, the audience knows a key piece of information that a character in a play or movie or novel does not. يعني you know what will happen, and the main character in the movie or the play or wherever in the literary work doesn't know that. So that's why it is dramatic, because you will be full of suspense and you will be like jumping in your place. You want to tell the character, for example, if it is a room and there is, let's say, a killer in that room. So the woman wants to enter the room, and you know from watching the movie that there is a killer who entered the room before her and he wants to kill her. So you want to tell her, no, stop, don't go. But actually you can't do this. So this is the dramatic irony. You know, but they don't know. So look, for example, at the dramatic irony is huge in Shakespeare's tragedies, most famously in Othello and Romeo and Juliet. I'll give you an example of Romeo and Juliet. In Romeo and Juliet, we know that Juliet... yeah, okay, so I explained this here. So in Romeo and Juliet, we know that Juliet drank medicine to go to sleep and to appear as if she died. And she sinned actually a message with a man to Romeo, sorry, that was Juliet, to Romeo, telling him that she will drink that medicine. Okay, but actually Romeo comes before he receives the message. We know that a message was sent to him. He arrives before he receives the message, and when he sees Juliet dead in front of him, that's what he thought, he kills himself. Okay, he drinks the poison and dies. And when Juliet wakes up, she finds that he was dead, so she drinks the poison and dies. So this is the dramatic irony. It's not a happy ending, right? So irony is not always about being humorous or laughing. So let's read it. In the final act of this archetypal love story, Shakespeare employs dramatic irony to keep the audience on the edge of their seats. On the edge, it means that you are full of suspense, التشويق والإثارة. Friar Lawrence sends a message to tell Romeo about Juliet's plan to drag herself into death-like coma. ده تشرب دواء وتنام تروح في غيبوبة وكأنه هي ميتة. We watch in horror as the messenger fails to deliver this vital piece of information. And though we know that Juliet is not really dead, we see Romeo poison himself because he cannot live without her. So definitely at this point, you feel depressed, you feel frustrated, you feel that you are guilty because you couldn't tell, for example, Romeo not to kill himself. Okay? Thanks for watching and see you inshallah in next sessions.